Hey there, welcome to this tutorial of Ultimate Annual Budget Planner. The first thing you do when you receive the sheet is to make a copy of the sheet. How you do it, just click the link here, and this tab will open up and you click this make a copy option and a new sheet will appear like this, and that'll be your own so that you're free to make any changes. Other than that, if you have any queries, you can click here and reach out to budgetwithmillie.com and send your queries there so that we'll guide you about any questions you have or any problems you're facing about the sheet. This tab is the guide and readme tab. It basically explains everything. All the instructions are given about every tab here. So like the setup tab, transactions log, the monthly tabs starting from January till December, the calendar tab, and the annual overview tab. This sheet is owned by Budget with Millie, and it is for personal use only. You should not share it or sell it on any platform. After you've read the guide and readme tab, you've read all the instructions. The first thing you do is you go to the setup tab and choose a currency. Whatever currency you use, for example, Saudi Riyal, dollar, euro. For now, I'll just stick with dollar. This tab is the enter your categories tab. You enter your categories of income, expenses, bills, savings, investments, tax. For example, I've entered in income, full-time salary, part-time salary, overeats. In expenses, I've entered groceries, fuel, bills, rent, savings account. You can enter anything. This is just dummy data. Enter what year you're using in. For example, this is 2025, so I've entered 2025 here. This is the bills and subscription setup tab. This is connected with enter your categories tab here. Whatever you enter here will be shown here. You just enter the due date of the rent. So for example, my rent is due on every 10th. I'll enter the 10th. And the amount due on every 10th is, for example, $400. So I'll enter that here. This is the accounts table. You enter all the bank accounts you have here. When you're done with the setup tab, you go to the transaction log and make some entries. So for example, I've made some dummy entries here. First thing you do is double click here in the date and you select the date. For example, I've entered the data for January and February. Let's enter some data for March. So I'm just dragging down because this is just dummy data. Now I'll select the categories. So let's select one income, two expenses, a bill, some debts, and some investment. Now select the subcategories. For income, I've entered full-time salary, part-time, and overeats in the setup tab. So it is showing the subcategories. Let's select full-time salary. And whatever amount I have received or expensed, I can enter here. So for example, my full-time salary is, for example, $2,000. Groceries, I bought for $500. Fuel was $500. Rent, $200. Student loan, $200. Then I can choose what account I use to make these transactions. So I'll choose some accounts. Now, this is the main tab where you make all the entries. All of these entries will be shown in all other tabs. Now, when you've entered data in the transaction tracker, you can go to the following tabs. So for example, for now, I've entered data for January, for February, and for March. So it will show data in January, February, and March. And as you can see, April is clear, May is clear, June is clear, and so far. So let's see for March, because I've entered the data for March. Let's see. So I entered $2,000 in full-time salary. It shows that I've made $2,000 in full-time salary. It shows the expenses, shows the bills and subscription. It shows 400 here. Why? Because I entered in the setup tab that my bills, rent is due on every 10th, and the budget amount is $400. But in transaction tracker, I've only paid $200 for the rent. So it is showing me that you have to pay 400, but you've only paid 200 so far. So I'll uncheck this because I haven't paid the full rent yet. And it is also showing me that it is due on the 10th. The same goes with the savings, investments, and debt payments. Now, this white column is where you make the budget where you budget things. For example, you expect for April, you expect like $2,000 in full time. You expect 400 in part time, 600 from Uber Eats. Likewise, let's do the same for this. For example, in February, I planned for March and it was 400, 600 for Uber Eats. But when March arrived, I was only able to make full-time salary. I didn't work overtime, so I received no part-time. I didn't work at Uber Eats, so I didn't make anything here. So these actual columns, the colored columns, are formulas linked with transaction track. You don't need to mess anything with this. You just enter in the white background. This monthly budget summary shows you what the totals, for example, the total income, you budget 3,000, but it actually you only made 2,000. You budgeted expenses of 500, but you made 1,200 of expenses. Likewise for bills and everything else, this shows you the total remaining, total income minus everything else. So it shows you, okay, you're left with $50 at the end of the month of January. These show your totals of income, expenses, savings, bills, debt, etc. This is a total breakdown linked with this that you can see here. You made expenses of 1,200, 61.5%, and everything else. You can see income breakdown, the expense breakdown, budget versus actual of everything. So for example, I expected $3,000. It is showing me that you budgeted $3,000, but you only made $2,000. You budgeted 500 in expenses, but you made 1,200 expenses in January. These are some areas to input your notes or your to-do list. Now, this is a very interesting table, the top 20 spending categories. It shows you where most of your money goes. So, as you can see, in January, I spent $1,000 on groceries and so on. And it is also showing me the percentage of the total. This pie chart also represents my top 20 spending or where most of my money goes. The same goes for every other monthly tab. Now that we've seen the setup tab, the transaction, and the monthly tabs. So for example, if you made transactions on transaction log and you want to see the progress on month, you want to see the progress month by month, you can just see it from here. But for example, if you want to see the progress of the whole year in one tab, for that we have the annual tab or the annual dashboard. This tab here shows you the total income, total expenses, total bills and subscriptions of every month. So it is showing me that I budgeted $3,000 in January, but I only made $2,000. I didn't budget anything for February, but still got $2,000, and so on for March, April. These show the total expenses, the budget versus the actual bills and subscriptions, debt payments, the investments, and the savings. This table, the annual summary table, shows you the total of the whole year, that throughout the year, I expected $9,000 of income, but I only made $6,000. Same goes for expenses, the budgeted, actual, and everything else. It shows a total. Okay, you made $6,000 of income, and at the end of the year, you have $750 in your account. This annual summary shows you through a pie chart, your expenses, shows your income in a line graph, expenses, bills, and subscriptions. These tell you the total of what you've done so far. So as you can see, $6,000, same. Total expenses, $3,300. Total bills, $1,200. This is the notes area. This is budget versus actual column. $9,000 budgeted, only made $6,000. Budgeted $500 of expenses, but made $3,300 of expenses. Then for a detailed version of your income and expenses, you go down the tab and you can see a detailed version of your income. So above, you're only seeing what you made in January, February, and March. But here you can see what you made in January, but through which income source you made or through which category did you expense it. So I can see that I made $2,000 in January, but through full-time salary. In February and March, it's the same. And the total income I made, $6,000, was only from full-time salary. I didn't work part-time. I didn't do Uber Eats. It is showing me that. Same goes with variable expenses. It shows me the monthly breakdown where the categories I expensed most. Okay, in February, in March, I expense the same on fuel and groceries. So this total shows you the total by category, and this total shows you the total by month. Same goes with bills and subscription, savings and sinking funds, investments, and debt. All of which is linked with transaction power. Nothing, you don't have to input anything in the annual overview. These charts show you the income breakdown. I made $6,000 full-time salary only. So it is showing me 6,000. Expenses, bills. This is again a top 10 spending categories. It is showing me that throughout the year, I expensed the most on groceries, 43%, rent 1,200 and 22%. This is a pie chart for that. Now let's move to the last and calendar tab. The calendar tab basically is a function where you can easily see and don't miss your deadlines. So you can see that in January, I have to pay rent on 10th, which is on Friday. So I can see, okay, yes, I have paid. Let's see. Yes, I have paid it. If I haven't paid, I'll just uncheck this and I can see that you haven't paid the rent. So you'll have to pay on 10th on Friday. You can change the months from here, February, March till December. You can change the calendar start date by this drop down. So for some people, the week starts on Monday. For others, in some other parts of the world, the week starts on Sunday. So you can adjust with that. This shows you the today's date, Saturday, 25th January, 2025. This is an annual bills and debt payment summary. This shows you throughout the months, you spent $500 on bills and you paid this much of debt. This is the important dates column. You enter whatever, for example, important dates are for you. So for example, I've entered Hajj on 16 May, just an example. So this calendar will show me that on May 16th, Hajj is due. So I can plan some things according to that. So that will be all for the whole sheet. The most important point to note is do not enter anything. Do not mess with the colored areas. So you don't have to enter anything in the colored areas. Only enter in the white cells. That'll be all for the tutorial. Thank you for watching us.